I spent $3,500 for my promotion party. Mom made it about my sister's engagement. Dad said, "Sit down or lose everything." I stood and took the mic. Having you here listening to me means a lot. Watch until the end and let me know in the comments which city you're watching from. I'm really curious to see how far my story is reaching. I had been saving for 8 months. Every extra hour of overtime, every bonus check, every dollar that didn't go toward rent or bills, all of it went into my promotion party fund. $3,500. It wasn't a small amount for me, but I thought this celebration was worth it. After 5 years of being overlooked and undervalued, I had finally been promoted to senior marketing director. The first female one in the company's history. I remember the pride I felt when I booked the venue, Riverview Gardens, with its elegant terrace overlooking the city skyline. I had hand-selected the menu, chosen a sophisticated blue and silver color scheme, and even hired a live jazz quartet instead of a DJ. This was supposed to be my moment, the first time in my life where I wasn't Elizabeth Parker, Caroline's less impressive sister, but Elizabeth Parker, successful executive in her own right. The morning of the party, I arrived early to make sure everything was perfect. But when I walked in, my heart dropped. Instead of the blue and silver decorations I had chosen, the venue was draped in white and pink. Wedding decorations. Engagement decorations. Not my decorations. Mom? I called out, spotting her adjusting a floral centerpiece that I definitely hadn't ordered. What's going on? Where are my decorations? My mother turned, her face lighting up with excitement that wasn't for me. Oh, Elizabeth. Isn't it wonderful? Caroline and Jason got engaged last night. We thought it would be perfect to turn this into their engagement party instead. Everyone's already invited, the venue's already paid for. I stood there, stunned. But Mom, this is my promotion party. I've been planning this for months. I spent $3,500. Don't be selfish, Elizabeth, she cut me off, her smile never faltering but her eyes growing cold. Your sister is getting married. That's a once-in-a-lifetime celebration. You'll have other promotions. I paid for this, I repeated, my voice growing smaller despite my efforts. This was supposed to be my night. Your sister deserves this more than you do, she replied simply, as if stating an obvious fact. She's starting a family. What are you celebrating? Another year at that company where you'll always be replaceable? Before I could respond, my father walked in, surveying the transformed venue with approval. Richard Parker, CEO of Parker Industries, a man whose approval I'd been chasing my entire life. Dad, I said, approaching him desperately. Did you know about this? They changed everything. This was supposed to be my promotion party. He glanced at me, his expression hard. Elizabeth, your sister is engaged. This is important to the family. And my promotion isn't? Lower your voice, he warned, looking around to make sure none of the catering staff was listening. You're making a scene. This is happening, whether you like it or not. Your mother has already invited all of our business associates to celebrate Caroline's engagement. But Dad, I know what you spent, he interrupted. And if you want to keep your position in my company, you'll sit down, smile, and be happy for your sister. Otherwise. He didn't need to finish the threat. I felt like I couldn't breathe. 5 years of working twice as hard as everyone else at Parker Industries, just to prove I wasn't there through nepotism. 5 years of my father scrutinizing my every decision, holding me to impossible standards while my sister floated through life on charm and family connections. And now, the one time I had earned something on my own merit, it was being taken away without a second thought. My colleagues started arriving, people I had invited to celebrate my success. I watched their confusion as they were handed champagne and told to celebrate Caroline's engagement. I smiled weakly when they looked to me for explanation, too humiliated to tell them the truth. Caroline arrived in a stunning white dress that she'd somehow acquired overnight, beaming as she accepted congratulations. She spotted me in the corner and waved, as if I was just another guest. Isn't this amazing? she gushed when she finally made her way over to me. Mom pulled this together so quickly. She's incredible. I nodded mechanically. Congratulations, I managed to say. Thanks, sis. I knew you wouldn't mind sharing your party. It's not like it was anything major, right? Just a work thing. Just a work thing. 5 years of sacrifice reduced to just a work thing. The jazz quartet I had hired was now playing romantic ballads as my sister and her fiancé took photos on the terrace, the spot where I was supposed to give my speech. My father caught my eye from across the room and mouthed, "Smile." I did as I was told. I always did as I was told. But something inside me had shifted. As I stood there watching my celebration transform into someone else's spotlight, I realized this was the story of my entire life. Always the backdrop to Caroline's main event, always the supporting character in the Parker family saga. The question was, what would I do about it? This wasn't the first time I had been pushed aside for Caroline. As I stood in that transformed venue, watching guests fawn over my sister, memories flooded back like scenes from a movie I'd watched too many times. I was 12, and Caroline was 14. I had made the finals of the regional science fair with a project on sustainable energy. The judging was scheduled for the same Saturday as Caroline's dance recital. I remember my mother's exasperated sigh when I showed her both invitations. "Elizabeth, we can't be in two places at once. Caroline has been practicing for months." So had I. But I went to the science fair alone, my project presented to judges without a single family member present. I won second place. No one was there to see it. When I was 16, I got accepted to Princeton with a partial scholarship. Caroline had been accepted to Yale the year before, with no scholarship needed, of course. My acceptance letter sat on the kitchen counter for 3 days before anyone noticed. Caroline's had been framed. "Princeton's a good school too," my father had said with a shrug. The "too" spoke volumes. At 22, I graduated summa cum laude with a double major in business and marketing. During my graduation ceremony, my parents left early to attend Caroline's law school graduation party. "She's the one hosting it," my mother explained apologetically. "You understand." I did understand. I always understood. And now, at 28, the pattern continued. As I watched my colleagues mingle awkwardly among my parents' country club friends, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Margaret Chen, my former professor who now ran her own marketing firm, someone I deeply respected and had specifically invited to witness my achievement. "Elizabeth," she said, her sharp eyes taking in the scene. "Interesting party." Not quite what I expected. I swallowed hard. There was a change of plans. She raised an eyebrow. "I see. And the promotion you mentioned?" "It still happened," I said quickly. "I'm officially Senior Marketing Director at Parker Industries as of Monday." "Congratulations. That's a significant achievement, especially given the company's traditional leadership structure." She glanced around at the engagement decorations. "Though it seems that's not what's being celebrated tonight." My face burned with humiliation. My sister got engaged yesterday. The family decided this was more important. Margaret's expression softened with understanding. "Ah. The family decided." The way she emphasized those words made me realize she understood more than I was saying. I had always been careful not to complain about my family's situation to anyone, especially not professional contacts. But Margaret had been my mentor long enough to notice patterns. "You know," she said quietly, "I've watched your career with interest, Elizabeth. You've consistently exceeded expectations and delivered exceptional results, often without recognition. You deserve more than this." Those words, "you deserve more," hit me like a physical force. Had anyone ever said that to me before? "Thank you," I whispered, desperately trying not to cry and ruin my carefully applied makeup. Across the room, my sister was opening champagne with her fiancé, their laughter ringing through the venue. My mother was proudly introducing them to everyone while my father discussed business with potential investors, using his daughter's engagement as a networking opportunity. Meanwhile, the banner I had ordered, "Congratulations Elizabeth Parker, Senior Marketing Director," lay discarded in a corner, hastily replaced with a generic, "Congratulations on your engagement" sign that my mother must have rushed ordered. The jazz quartet was playing a romantic ballad now. The lead singer announced, "This one's for the happy couple. Caroline and Jason, congratulations on your engagement." The musicians I had hired. The ones I was paying for. Now they were part of someone else's celebration too. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas, my boyfriend of 2 years, running late. Traffic. "Your sister's engagement, right? That's what everyone's saying." I stared at the message. Even Thomas thought this was Caroline's party. I typed back, "It was supposed to be my promotion party." 3 dots appeared as he typed his response, "Oh. Well, engagement's bigger news anyway. Be there soon." I put my phone away, a hollow feeling spreading through my chest. My mother appeared beside me, champagne flute in hand. "Elizabeth, darling, could you check with the kitchen? I think they're running low on those little crab cakes Caroline loves." "Mom, those weren't even on the menu I selected. The catering was for a corporate event, not an engagement party." She waved dismissively. "I called them this morning and made some changes. Don't worry, I used your credit card on file. Now be a dear and check on those crab cakes." I felt something I had been suppressing for years, pure, unadulterated rage. But as I had been conditioned to do all my life, I swallowed it down and nodded. "Of course, Mom." In the kitchen, away from the celebration, I finally had a moment to myself. I leaned against the counter, trying to steady my breathing. "Miss Parker?" It was the head caterer, looking concerned. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine," I lied automatically. She gave me a knowing look. "If you don't mind me saying, I've catered a lot of events, and I've never seen one changed so completely at the last minute. This was supposed to be your professional celebration, wasn't it?" I nodded, unable to speak. "For what it's worth," she said kindly, "the original menu you selected was impeccable. Very sophisticated. The changes." She trailed off diplomatically. "Thank you," I whispered. As I walked back into the party, I saw Thomas had arrived. He was already chatting animatedly with Caroline and Jason, champagne in hand, completely at ease. He hadn't even looked for me first. Watching my boyfriend laugh at my sister's joke, seeing my colleagues cornered by my father's business associates, observing my carefully planned celebration completely erased, something inside me began to shift. I had spent 28 years disappearing whenever the family needed me to. 28 years of understanding why I always came second. 28 years of swallowing my disappointment, of shrinking myself to make room for Caroline's expanding spotlight. What would happen if, just once, I refused to disappear? The party was in full swing now. The room buzzed with conversation and laughter, champagne flowed freely, and Caroline remained at the center of it all, radiating happiness. I watched from the periphery, a spectator at my own event. I slipped away to the small office behind the reception area, needing a moment of quiet. On the desk lay a folder, my original party plans. I flipped it open and stared at the contracts I'd signed, the meticulous details I'd arranged. The receipts totaling $3,500 were paper-clipped together, each one representing extra hours worked, small luxuries foregone. Next to my folder was another, hastily assembled, with my mother's handwriting on the tab, Caroline's engagement. Inside were my contracts with large red lines through them, notes about changes, and new invoices. My mother had kept the venue but altered everything else, the menu, the music selections, even the lighting design. What caught my eye was a note in my mother's elegant script, "Use Elizabeth's deposit for photographer upgrade." They hadn't just repurposed my party, they'd reallocated my money without asking. I sank into the chair, the reality of the situation hitting me full force. This wasn't just about a party. This was the culmination of a lifetime of being an afterthought in my own family. The door opened, and Thomas walked in. "There you are," he said, sounding annoyed. "Your mom's looking for you." They're about to do the toasts. Toasts, I repeated flatly. For an engagement that happened yesterday. At my promotion party that I've been planning for months. Thomas sighed dramatically. Are we really doing this right now? It's your sister's engagement, Elizabeth. It's kind of a big deal. And my promotion isn't? I asked, holding up the folder of receipts. I spent $3,500 on this party, Thomas. Money I saved for months. He shrugged. So? Your family has money. It's not like $3,500 is going to break the bank for the Parkers. It's not about the money, I said, my voice rising slightly. It's about respect. It's about acknowledging my accomplishments for once instead of shoving them aside the moment Caroline does anything. You're being dramatic, Thomas said dismissively. This is why your family treats you differently, you know. Caroline doesn't make everything about herself. The irony of his statement was so profound I almost laughed. Caroline doesn't have to make anything about herself. Everyone else already does that for her. Look, Thomas said, checking his watch impatiently, can we just get back to the party? Your mother wants everyone gathered for the toasts, and you're in here throwing a pity party. I stared at him. This man I'd been dating for 2 years, who supposedly loved me, couldn't even see how hurt I was. Do you even care about my promotion at all? He rolled his eyes. Of course I care. But you need to get over these childish jealousy issues with your sister. It's not attractive. In that moment, something crystallized within me. Thomas wasn't on my side. He never had been. He enjoyed the connections that came with dating a Parker, the doors it opened for his own career. But he didn't see me, not really. You should go join the toasts, I said quietly. And you're coming too, right? He asked, already moving toward the door. I'll be there in a minute. After Thomas left, I sat alone in the office, staring at the 2 folders side by side. My carefully planned celebration and its hasty transformation into something that excluded me entirely. When I finally returned to the party, my mother was clinking a spoon against her champagne glass, calling for attention. Everyone, gather around. It's time to toast the happy couple. The crowd formed a semicircle around Caroline and Jason. Thomas stood near them, not even looking for me. My father caught my eye and jerked his head slightly, silently commanding me to join the family at the front. Instead, I remained where I was, at the back of the crowd. My mother raised her glass. When Caroline called me yesterday with the wonderful news, I knew we had to celebrate immediately. Luckily, we already had this lovely venue booked. She laughed, and the guests joined in, unaware of the sting her words carried. To think, just yesterday she was single, and today we're planning a wedding. Caroline has always been exceptional that way. When she knows what she wants, the universe simply makes it happen for her. More laughter. More nodding. Caroline beamed. Jason, my mother continued, turning to her future son-in-law, we are delighted to welcome you to our family. Caroline has always deserved someone special, and we couldn't be happier that she found you. My father raised his glass next. To Caroline and Jason. May your future be as bright as Caroline's smile and as successful as the Parker name. Cheers erupted. Glasses clinked. Caroline kissed Jason to appreciative applause. Then my mother's voice again, and where's Elizabeth? There she is. Come up here, darling. Say a few words about your sister's wonderful news. All eyes turned to me. I felt frozen in place, the weight of expectation pressing down on me. This was the pattern. I was supposed to smile, say something heartfelt about my perfect sister, and fade back into the background. My father gave me a hard stare, his message clear: don't make a scene. Don't embarrass the family. I took a step forward, then another. The crowd parted to let me through. Caroline waited at the front, her smile confident, expectant. Of course I would say beautiful things about her. I always did. As I approached, the DJ, who had replaced my carefully selected jazz quartet for the second half of the evening, handed me a microphone. A few words from the sister of the bride-to-be, he announced cheerfully. I took the microphone, its weight unfamiliar in my hand. The room fell silent, waiting for the usual platitudes. I looked at Caroline, radiant in her white dress that she'd somehow acquired overnight. I looked at my parents, their expressions a mix of pride, for her, and warning, for me. I looked at Thomas, who wasn't even looking back at me, already bored with the proceedings. And then, with perfect clarity, I knew what I needed to do. The microphone felt heavy in my hand. My heart pounded so loudly I was certain everyone could hear it. The silence stretched as I stood there, everyone waiting for me to speak the expected words of congratulations and sisterly devotion. I looked at Caroline's expectant face. She wasn't malicious, not really. She had simply been raised to believe the world revolved around her, because in our family, it always had. She genuinely couldn't understand why tonight might be difficult for me. My father cleared his throat impatiently. A warning. I took a deep breath and finally spoke. I'd like to congratulate Caroline and Jason, I began, my voice surprisingly steady. Several people nodded approvingly, assuming I was following the script. An engagement is certainly worth celebrating. I paused, feeling a strange calm wash over me. For 28 years, I had swallowed my feelings to keep the peace. For 28 years, I had been the good daughter who never complained, never demanded attention, never rocked the boat. What would happen if I stopped? But that's not why we're here tonight, I continued. Or at least, that's not why we were supposed to be here. My mother's smile froze. My father's eyes narrowed dangerously. This venue, these decorations, well, not these decorations, they were changed, but this party was originally planned for a different celebration. My celebration. The room had gone completely still. I could hear the ice clinking in glasses, the soft shuffle of uncomfortable feet. 3 days ago, I was promoted to Senior Marketing Director at Parker Industries. The first woman to hold this position in the company's history. I spent $3,500 of my own money to celebrate this milestone, money I saved for 8 months. I watched as expressions around the room shifted from confusion to understanding to discomfort. My colleagues, who had seemed puzzled all evening, now exchanged knowing glances. When I arrived tonight, I discovered my promotion party had been transformed into an engagement party without my knowledge or consent. My decorations removed, my carefully selected menu changed, my jazz quartet redirected to play different music. Elizabeth, my mother hissed, stepping forward. That's enough. I ignored her. This isn't the first time my accomplishments have been overshadowed in this family. It's just the first time I'm saying something about it. Give me the microphone, my father demanded, his face flushed with anger. No. The word felt foreign on my tongue, but exhilarating. No, I won't. From the corner of my eye, I saw Thomas shaking his head in disapproval. Let him disapprove. I was done seeking approval from people who couldn't see my worth. I've spent my entire life being told to sit down, be quiet, and let Caroline shine. I've been the reliable daughter, the one who works twice as hard for half the recognition. The one who gets told that her achievements don't matter because they're just work things while Caroline's every move is celebrated like she's discovered the cure for cancer. A shocked murmur ran through the crowd. The Parkers didn't air their dirty laundry in public. Ever. My father stepped forward, his voice low and threatening. Elizabeth, if you don't stop this right now. You'll what? I asked, turning to face him directly. Cut me off? Take away my position at the company? Make me feel invisible? That's already my daily reality, Dad. His face darkened. You're embarrassing yourself and this family. No, I said firmly. This family embarrassed me when they decided my celebration wasn't important. When they took the party I paid for and turned it into something else without even asking me. When they made it clear, yet again, that I will always come second. I turned back to the stunned guests. I'm not saying Caroline's engagement isn't worth celebrating. I'm saying my promotion was worth celebrating too. My gaze swept across the room, landing on Margaret Chin, who was watching me with quiet approval. That small nod of support gave me the strength to continue. I've spent my whole life diminishing myself to avoid rocking the boat. Accepting that my achievements matter less, that my time and money matter less, that I matter less. And I'm done. The silence was deafening. Caroline looked stricken, as if it had never occurred to her that her happiness might have come at someone else's expense. My mother's expression was a mix of fury and mortification. My father looked like he might explode. Thomas pushed through the crowd, hissing as he reached me, "What the hell do you think you're doing? You're ruining everything." I looked at him calmly. "No, Thomas. I'm finally standing up for myself. And if you can't understand why that's necessary, then you don't know me at all." His eyes widened in shock. I had never spoken to him that way before. I raised the microphone one last time. "I wish Caroline and Jason every happiness in their engagement. I truly do. But I won't pretend that hijacking my celebration was acceptable. I won't pretend that erasing my achievement doesn't hurt." I handed the microphone to the DJ, who took it with visible discomfort. The room remained frozen in collective shock as I walked toward the exit. My father intercepted me, grabbing my arm roughly. "If you walk out that door," he growled, "don't bother coming back, to this party or to Parker Industries. You're fired." I met his gaze steadily. "You can't fire me, Dad. I quit." I gently but firmly removed his hand from my arm and continued walking. Thomas called after me, but I didn't turn around. I didn't look back at Caroline's confused face or my mother's mortified one. As I pushed open the doors and stepped into the cool night air, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: freedom. My hands were shaking, my heart racing, but my mind was clear. For the first time in my life, I had refused to make myself smaller for the comfort of others. I had no idea what tomorrow would bring. No job, possibly no boyfriend, certainly a family in turmoil. I should have been terrified. Instead, as I walked to my car under the vast, star-filled sky, I felt oddly peaceful. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms, not as Caroline's shadow, not as the Parker family disappointment, but as Elizabeth, finally standing in her own light. The week after the party was eerily quiet. I had expected a barrage of angry calls and texts from my family, but there was nothing. Complete radio silence. Thomas had sent a few messages, each one increasingly irritated, but I hadn't responded. I needed space to think, to process what had happened and what would come next. I had quit my job in a moment of defiance. 5 years at Parker Industries, gone. My resume now had a gaping hole where my most significant professional experience should be. Would other companies even consider hiring me after I had walked out so dramatically? Would my father use his considerable influence to blacklist me in the industry? These worries swirled through my mind as I sat in my apartment, scrolling through job listings on my laptop. The rent was due in 2 weeks, and my savings had been significantly depleted by the $3,500 party that wasn't even mine in the end. My phone buzzed with a text. Caroline. The first contact from any family member since the party. "Can we meet for coffee? Just us. Please." I stared at the message for a long time, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to cut ties completely with the family that had consistently devalued me. But another part was curious. Caroline had never sought me out for a one-on-one conversation before. "Okay," I finally replied. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Blackbird Cafe." I arrived early the next morning, choosing a table in the corner where we wouldn't be easily overheard. Caroline walked in 5 minutes late, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Her normally perfect hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup. She spotted me and hesitated briefly before making her way over. "Thanks for meeting me," she said quietly, sliding into the chair across from mine. I nodded but didn't speak. "Elizabeth, she stopped, seeming to struggle with her words. "What you said at the party. Was that really how you feel? That you've always been overshadowed?" "Yes," I said simply. "It is. She looked down at her hands. I never meant to make you feel that way. I know you didn't, I replied, surprising myself with how calm I felt. But intention doesn't change impact, Caroline. You didn't have to mean it. Mom and Dad created this dynamic, and we both just played our assigned roles. They're furious, you know, she said. Dad especially. He can't believe you would air family business in public like that. I couldn't help but laugh. Of course, that's what he's upset about. Not that they hijacked my celebration, not that they've consistently treated me as less important, but that I had the audacity to say it out loud. Caroline bit her lip. He says you're not welcome at Sunday dinners anymore. Not until you apologize. I won't be apologizing, I said firmly. I meant every word. She nodded slowly. I thought you might say that. She hesitated, then added, Jason and I postponed our engagement party. A real one, I mean. It didn't feel right to celebrate after what happened. I raised an eyebrow, genuinely surprised. That's thoughtful of you. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, Caroline continued. About how my achievements have always been celebrated while yours were ignored. I never saw it before, but looking back, you're right. It wasn't fair. I hadn't expected this. Caroline acknowledging the family's unequal treatment was unprecedented. Did you really spend $3,500 on that party? She asked. Yes. And Mom and Dad just took it over? Without asking? Yes. She winced. That's awful, Elizabeth. I'm so sorry. If I had known. Would it have made a difference? I interrupted. Caroline fell silent, considering the question honestly. I don't know, she finally admitted. Before your speech, probably not. I was too caught up in my own excitement. But I'd like to think I would have at least acknowledged that it was supposed to be your celebration too. We sat in silence for a moment, both processing this new territory in our relationship. What will you do now? She asked. About work, I mean. I don't know, I admitted. I've been applying for positions at other companies, but Dad might make things difficult, she finished, understanding the unspoken concern. Yes. Caroline took a deep breath. There's something else you should know. After you left, Margaret Chin approached me. She said she's been impressed with your work for years and that if you ever decided to leave Parker Industries, she'd be interested in talking to you about joining her firm. I straightened in my chair. She said that? Yes. She left her card with me. Caroline reached into her purse and pulled out Margaret's business card. She said, and I quote, your sister has extraordinary talent that's been consistently undervalued at your family's company. I'd like to offer her a position where her contributions will be properly recognized. I took the card, a mix of emotions washing over me. Margaret had seen my worth all along. Elizabeth, Caroline said hesitantly, I know things have been unbalanced between us for our whole lives. I can't change the past, but I want things to be different going forward. I want to be a better sister to you. I studied her face, looking for any sign of insincerity, but found none. Caroline seemed genuinely remorseful. I'd like that, I said cautiously. But it won't happen overnight. There's a lot of history here, Caroline. I know, she nodded. I'm willing to work on it, if you are. As we finished our coffee, I felt something shift between us. Not forgiveness exactly, the wounds were too deep for that, but perhaps the first step toward a more equal relationship. Later that day, I called the number on Margaret's card. Her assistant put me through immediately. Elizabeth, Margaret's confident voice came through the phone. I was hoping I'd hear from you. I understand you left your card with my sister, I said. I did. That was quite a speech you gave at your party. It takes courage to stand up for yourself like that, especially to family. Thank you, I said. Caroline mentioned you might be interested in discussing a potential position at your firm? More than interested, Margaret replied. I've been watching your work for years, Elizabeth. You have exceptional talent and a unique perspective. The kind of qualities I value at Chin Marketing Group. I'd like to offer you the position of creative director. My breath caught. Creative director was a step above my position at Parker Industries. Would you be available to meet tomorrow to discuss the details? She continued. Yes, I said, a sense of excitement building within me. Yes, I would. As I hung up, I felt like I was standing at the edge of something new. The last few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotions: hurt, anger, validation, and now, possibility. For the first time, I wasn't defined by my relationship to the Parker family. I was Elizabeth, talented marketer, woman who finally found her voice. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. 6 months passed in the blink of an eye. My role as creative director at Chin Marketing Group had proven to be everything I'd hoped for and more. Margaret was the mentor I'd always needed, demanding excellence but acknowledging achievement, pushing me to grow while providing the support to make it possible. For the first time in my professional life, my ideas weren't just heard, they were valued. Our latest campaign for a sustainable fashion brand had just won a prestigious industry award, my name prominently featured as the campaign's architect. The recognition felt surreal after years of working in the shadows at Parker Industries. I hadn't spoken to my father since the night of the party. My mother had called a few times, her messages always the same: your father is still very upset, but he might be willing to forgive you if you apologize. I never responded to these thinly veiled attempts to pull me back into the old dynamic. Caroline and I had cautiously begun rebuilding our relationship. It wasn't easy, decades of inequality couldn't be erased overnight, but she was genuinely trying. We met for coffee every other week, carefully navigating the new terrain of an adult-sibling relationship not defined by our parents' favoritism. Thomas and I broke up the week after the party. He couldn't understand why I wouldn't just apologize and fix things. His final words to me were, "You're throwing away everything for your pride." What he never understood was that I wasn't throwing away anything worth keeping. As I packed up my desk on a Friday evening, preparing for a weekend away with friends, another change in my life, prioritizing my own joy, my phone rang. Caroline. Hello? I answered, wedging the phone between my ear and shoulder as I continued gathering my things. Elizabeth. Her voice sounded strained. Dad's in the hospital. My hands stilled. What happened? Heart attack. They're saying it's stress-related. He's stable, but... She trailed off. But what? He's asking for you. I sat down heavily in my chair. Me? Not you or Mom. We're already here. He specifically asked to see you. She paused. I think he has something he needs to say to you. An hour later, I walked into the hospital room where my father lay, looking smaller somehow against the white sheets. My mother sat beside him, her face drawn with worry. She looked up when I entered, relief washing over her features. Elizabeth, you came. She stood, awkwardly hovering as if unsure whether to hug me. Caroline said he asked for me, I replied, my voice neutral. My father turned his head toward me, his usual commanding presence diminished by the hospital gown and monitoring equipment. Elizabeth, he said, his voice rougher than I remembered. Hello, Dad. He gestured weakly to the chair beside the bed. Sit. Even now, giving orders. I considered refusing but decided against it. I hadn't come to fight. Your mother, give us a minute, he said, dismissing her with a familiar wave. She hesitated, then nodded, squeezing my shoulder briefly as she passed. The gesture surprised me. Physical affection had never been common in our family. When the door closed behind her, my father and I sat in silence for a long moment. You're doing well, he finally said. Not a question. Yes, I am. Chin Marketing Group. Impressive firm. I've heard about your recent award. I didn't respond. I wasn't here to seek his approval. He sighed heavily. I'm not good at this, Elizabeth. At what? Admitting when I'm wrong. He looked away, staring at the ceiling. I've built my life on being right. Making the decisions. Knowing what's best for everyone. I waited, unwilling to make this easier for him. What you said at the party, he continued. About always being overlooked. About your achievements not mattering as much. He paused. I didn't want to hear it then, but I've had time to think. He turned back to face me. You were right. The words hung in the air between us. My father had never admitted I was right about anything. I favored Caroline. It wasn't intentional, at least not at first. She was louder, more demanding. You were always so self-sufficient. You never seemed to need the attention. Everyone needs to be seen, Dad, I said quietly. Everyone needs to know they matter. He nodded slowly. Yes. I see that now. He gestured to the heart monitor beside him. Sometimes it takes a wake-up call. I leaned forward slightly. Why did you ask to see me? 2 reasons, he replied. First, to tell you that Anderson and Meyer tried to poach our Westridge account last month. I frowned, confused by the sudden shift to business talk. They used your campaign for Chen as an example of the kind of innovative thinking Westridge needed, he continued. Argued that Parker Industries had lost its creative edge when we lost you. My eyebrows rose in surprise. They were right, my father admitted. The work you're doing at Chen is exceptional. Better than anything you did at Parker. I have a better mentor, I said simply. He accepted this with a slight nod. The second reason I wanted to see you was to say I'm sorry. The words seemed to physically pain him. Richard Parker didn't apologize. Ever. What happened at that party was wrong. Taking over your celebration, dismissing your achievement, it was wrong, and I'm sorry. I sat very still, absorbing the apology I never thought I'd hear. You deserved better, he added. As a daughter and as a professional. Yes, I agreed. I did. He seemed to steel himself before speaking again. I'd like to make you an offer to come back to Parker Industries. As Executive Creative Director. Complete autonomy over your department, reporting directly to me. Better compensation than Chen is offering. I almost laughed. Even in a hospital bed, recovering from a heart attack, my father was still trying to control the situation, to bring me back into the fold on his terms. No, Dad, I said gently but firmly. I'm happy where I am. He looked genuinely surprised. Chen can't match what I'm offering. It's not about the money or the title, I explained. It's about respect. At Chen, I've never had to fight to be valued. My work speaks for itself. And at Parker, you'd always be my daughter first, he realized aloud. Yes. He was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. I understand. And I believed, perhaps for the first time, that he actually did. When my mother returned, she seemed shocked to find us talking calmly. Caroline arrived shortly after, and we all sat together, the conversation cautious but civil. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. As I prepared to leave, my father called me back. Elizabeth. One more thing. I turned, waiting. I'm proud of you, he said, the words clearly unfamiliar on his tongue. Not just for your professional success, but for standing up for yourself. Even when it was against me. He smiled faintly. Especially when it was against me. I blinked back unexpected tears. Thank you, Dad. 3 weeks later, I stood at the front of a small, elegantly appointed restaurant, surrounded by my colleagues from Chen Marketing Group. Margaret raised her glass, drawing everyone's attention. To Elizabeth Parker, she announced, whose exceptional leadership has brought our firm its 3rd major award this year. When I recruited Elizabeth 6 months ago, I knew she was talented. What I've discovered since is that she's also one of the most authentic and courageous people I've ever had the pleasure of working with. Glasses clinked amid applause. This celebration was nothing like the elaborate party I'd planned at Riverview Gardens. It was smaller, simpler, and infinitely more meaningful. As I looked around at the faces of my colleagues, people who knew me for my work, not my family name, I felt a deep sense of contentment. In finding my voice that night at the hijacked party, I hadn't just stood up to my family, I had stepped into my own power. Caroline sat at a nearby table, having accepted my invitation to attend. We were slowly building something new, a relationship based on mutual respect rather than competition. My parents hadn't been invited. Some boundaries needed to remain firm. When it was my turn to speak, I took the microphone with confidence. This time, there was no fear, no hesitation. This time, the celebration was truly mine. Thank you all for being here tonight, I began, my voice clear and strong. 6 months ago, I made the difficult choice to leave what was familiar and step into the unknown. It was terrifying, and the best decision I've ever made. I caught Margaret's eye, seeing her approving nod. I've learned that sometimes finding your place means leaving where you don't belong. That speaking your truth, even when your voice shakes, is worth whatever comes after. And that being valued for who you are is worth more than any title or paycheck. I raised my glass. To discovering your worth, and never settling for less. As applause filled the room, I felt the final pieces click into place. The journey hadn't been easy, and the relationships with my family would always be complicated. But I had found my voice, my place, my value. And no one would ever take that away from me again.